Hey, it's Gigguk, and you're watching Pixel Party Pals. Woo! I got it right on my first take.
Hey guys, how's it going? So, we're back at another Gigguk video. Gigguk hat, Gigguk signature, probably with a Gigguk intro. And this is interesting, because this is a video titled The Fascinating... Man, that intro was nearly perfect. The Fascinating World of Index / Railgun and Why You Should Watch It. And this is something that I've always been meaning to watch. I've never watched it myself, but there was a moment when I was at London Comic Con a few years ago and Manga Entertainment were showing off trailers for stuff that was being released, and they showed a trailer for a certain magical index trailer and mentioned a certain magical railgun, and everyone in the room was just going crazy for it, and people in the questions were like, just like, when's the next when you're gonna have magical railgun out and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, this is something I really need to check out. I've just never got around to it. So I'm hoping Gigguk's gonna have some interesting pointers here that's gonna make me go, you know what, I'm gonna go check it out. So let's get into this. The Fascinating World of Index / Railgun and Why You Should Watch It.
Why do you like Index? Why are you hyped for it?
Oh, this was from his stream, wasn't it? He was like checking out all
Here's
the
my
new
opinion. I don't get it. It's
stuff for the season.
It's not bad. It's just really mediocre, and that's my opinion on Index.
Okay.
This was me, literally a month ago, reacting to the new Index Season 3 trailer as I was streaming my impressions of the fall season chart. See, the whole Index, Railgun, Toaru, whatever you want to call it, franchise has always been somewhat of a mystery for me. From my perspective, it always looked like your typical generic high school fantasy action light novel that has been done a million different times nowadays, and any attempts to watch the anime did nothing to prove me otherwise. Yet it's a franchise that had one of those fan bases that would praise it to high heavens. You know, one of those rabid fan bases that seems nigh on obsessed with a franchise and would take any opportunity they had to spread the word of the Holy Gospel like they were recruiting for a new religious cult or something. So after 7 years of silence before a new season getting announced seemingly out of nowhere, I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to try to get to the bottom of why this franchise is so beloved by so many, despite, by my accounts, it looking like a dated mid-2000s generic light novel franchise that time should have left behind.
Wow.
And through that journey, I discovered a unique world that blends fantasy and science in a way I'd never seen before. A grand narrative that fits the bill for a shared universe I had been searching for in anime for so long. A power system so intriguing it tested my knowledge of my university education that before I knew it, something happened. I became a fan.
Cool. Why you should get into
become my new obsession, and sometimes there's nothing quite like the feeling of completely losing yourself in the franchise, consuming every little thing it has to offer, researching the intricacies of the world mechanics, finding every little bit you can about the lore and background, and you do it because
there's that much going on.
You go, the more rewarding the experience becomes as a whole. This franchise was exactly that for me, so today I wanted to share some of the reasoning why I got so sucked in to the world of Index. Now, before I get started, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Bookwalker, who are doing an Index giveaway right now if you want to get figures. Details are coming at the end of this video if you feel like having a dabble in the franchise, because I understand that as big as Index was in its heyday, it's been 7 years since its last anime adaptation.
That's a long time.
So I'm sure there are many of you
that
now
is a
who have
long time
the
for an anime
franchise.
to
So
carry
here's
on.
a bit of background. A Certain Magical Index is a light novel series that started in 2004 and has since spawned a grand franchise sporting multiple anime adaptations, spin-offs in mangas and anime forms, and lots of light novels. Many people are familiar with the franchise through its mainline anime series, A Certain Magical Index, in which we mainly follow a spiky-haired protagonist, Toma Kamijo, on his adventures of fighting magicians, picking up chicks and solving literally every problem by punching it in the face.
Take that problem.
Equally as popular is its spin-off series, A Certain Scientific Railgun, the adventures of Mikoto Misaka, a powerful esper with the ability to control electricity, shrug off teleporting lesbians, and is basically Pikachu as a tsundere anime girl. In a brief description, it may be hard to see the appeal of Index because that's what it looks like from the outside, and to say the franchise is a bit daunting is kind of an understatement at this point. But from my personal experience, through all the confusion about the sheer scope, explanations about chronology, read and watch order, I never really saw anything to explain to me what the core appeal of Index was and why it's amassed such a loyal fan base. So that's what I'm going to try and do today. And I think a good place to start, instead of explaining specific plot details, is to start explaining what Index is as a concept.
Please. Please. The world of
Index is
Index.
set in a world very reminiscent of the one we're in right now, except both magic and science play a massive part in it. You have the world of magic, which has its roots in faith and religion that can be traced back through various myths and legends, and has shaped a lot of the world's history through secret organizations and practices.
Cool.
This is where you see a lot of the traditional fantasy elements, with mages and magicians drawing their powers through spells and magic, and it
Cool.
finds its basis through a lot of real-life lore we can find in this world. However, you also have the world of science, as the main setting is the modern sci-fi world of Academy City. Here you have a city that's advanced to be 30 years ahead technology-wise to what we have today.
Oh,
And it's full
okay.
of people who
This is
have
cool.
gained supernatural power through the practices of science and experimentation. And while both these worlds are normally kept separate, they are in conflict with each other, both vying to be the dominant power to shape the world of Index, which serves as the basis for the various stories told in this setting. And it's really hard to get this perspective from the beginning. This is where a lot of the confusion about what the franchise is about lies.
All
Many
right.
people, myself included, were only really exposed through the plot synopsis of the opening arc. Something about a generic spiky-haired boy whose right hand had the power to cancel out any magic or supernatural ability, hashtag a week into No Nut November, running into some lolly nun that has a load of magic books in her head who's getting chased by this mysterious magical organization with your usual trashy power fantasy stuff. And while this is technically what happens, it's not an accurate representation of the franchise at all. Despite its name, Index is not actually about Index, the lolly nun character, nor is it really about Toma, despite him getting most of the screen time. A better way to describe this series from a broader perspective is that it's like a shared universe, with many moving parts having more in common with things like Game of Thrones or the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
Think of every story arc as a different movie in the MCU. Each arc is a self-contained story that adds a new element or cast of characters to the world, whether they focus exclusively on the science side of things or the magic side of things, and occasionally you get bigger crossover events that involve every party, where you get to see the normally separate cast and elements come together. Because of this structure, you can have multiple storylines running in parallel, and sometimes you get to see the same events happen but from different characters' perspectives, and while not every story arc is essential to follow along with the grander narrative, they all add something to the canon of this shared universe.
Right.
So while all the different series stretched across multiple mediums may look confusing and daunting, what it really
It all
means is that
blends.
there are multiple ways to get into this franchise.
That's
you can
cool.
start with Index, or you can even start with Railgun if you so please. You can read the light novels for some arc, then switch to the manga, then switch to the anime, or vice versa.
It
doesn't
all
really
just
matter
works
how
that
you
well, that's
choose
so
to
good.
consume it, because the universe they all take place in stays coherent. The
That's
only
cool.
difference is that light novels may go more in depth in the intricacies of the world and their systems.
Right.
This is why I hazard to call Railgun a spin-off, because while technically the events aren't as important to the main narrative in the same way that, for example, Black Panther doesn't move forward the grander Infinity Stones plotline of the MCU, it's a great story and serves to give the viewer a better understanding
Alright,
of the
so it just
characters
all
and
mash-
why
it
they
all-
act the way
that's
they
cool,
do in
it
the
all goes
main
together.
series. Index's core appeal stems from this expanded universe and how extensively it blends in its science fiction and fantasy elements in a coherent world. I've made a video before expressing my desire to see some kind of shared universe in anime form, and I didn't realise at the time how closely Index fitted this bill, because
Cool.
for all you can say about the characters and protagonists that make up the world, as good or bad as the characters may be, they aren't individually what makes this franchise what it is. They aren't what drives its fan base to be as invested or obsessed as they are. It's the world, which
That's
is encompassed
everything's
by its
set in.
setting,
That's cool.
Academy City. Academy City is a weird beast to tackle, because while it's technically just a backdrop for all these story arcs taking place, I'd actually argue that it is the main character of the franchise, because while Toma may be the face and main protagonist of Index early on, as the world expands and more characters get introduced,
people
Index
become
becomes
part
the
of it,
story of
right.
Academy City itself. It's the inhabitants of Academy City whose storylines we get to follow. It's Academy City that is the driving force for the grander conflict. It's Academy City which serves as the core thread that connects all the numerous plot lines together. Even if events aren't happening there, it always exudes a constant presence, and honestly seems like a really cool and unique place, which unfortunately the anime doesn't always do justice with a simple portrayal of fucking bad CG wind turbines everywhere. Because of the amount of strange different happenings revolving around this city, the series can take many forms and genres depending on the arc and character we're following.
Right.
Sometimes it's a dark sci-fi involving horrific human experimentation.
My God.
Sometimes it's a fantasy action exploring secret underground organizations.
Cool.
Sometimes it's a fluffy high school slice of life, and sometimes it's all of those things.
Alright.
Admittedly, I found the story arcs that focused on science far more interesting than the ones that focused on magic, but what made it all worth sticking through was when you were able to see all the various characters and plot lines converge. Some of my favourite moments were actually just seeing different characters from the various story arcs meeting for the first
That's
time and
cool.
interacting with each other. There was a few episodes in Index Season 2 that was purely dedicated to bullshit slice-of-life fluff involving all the cast members, and it was honestly some of my
That's
favourite
awesome.
episodes.
I like stuff like that.
The franchise rewards you for investing in the world as a whole. You'll have elements you like, you'll have elements you won't like, you'll have characters that bore you, and characters that you'll absolutely love, which, let's be honest, is going to be Accelerator, because he's best boy. It's the
Cool.
juxtaposition of all these different narrative elements you wouldn't normally see together put in one place that makes it so interesting. You not only have mages and espers, you have angels, alchemists, underground assassins.
There's a lot going on.
Military SWAT teams fighting magical nuns, and what I like is how much they try to ground it in our world, because every element, no matter how ridiculous, has a basis from our real world. Supernatural phenomenon that we may hear about here and there are given an explanation in
What the
Index
hell
with
is
the
that?
rules
Oh,
and
right. What
structure
the
of
hell?
this universe. And that's why this setting works. This attention to detail is something that's also mirrored in their power systems, which is the one other big unique thing this franchise has to offer.
Please explain it. Power
God
system.
Damn, I love the power system in this franchise.
Alright.
Well, half of it anyway, because most noteworthy is that there are two entirely different systems that work in parallel. One for the magic side of things and one for the science side of things.
Right.
And both have been given a lot of care to ground it in with elements we can find in our own world. The magic system was a bit more confusing for me, but it makes sense in the lore because they are meant to be supernatural phenomena that cannot be explained or analysed via any sort
Right,
of
I like that.
scientific means
It's hard to
or reason.
explain, but
So
it's
instead,
not meant
the
to be
basis of
explained.
magic in the Index universe comes from real-life mythology and lore you can find historically. From Christianity to Judaism to
Alright.
Norse and Egyptian mythology to Feng Shui, it all finds its roots
Cool.
through stories told through world history and religion. To give an example, someone like Jesus in the Index universe would have been a magic user. However, to me, the standout power system comes from the science side of things, and that's what I want to focus on, because what makes this stand out so much is how grounded every ability is in real-world science and physics.
Alright.
Which, you know, is something I appreciated heavily as someone who went to university to get a master's in electronic and electrical engineering.
That's cool.
I know this is a
I love he's got the UA logo on the...
Let's take Misaki
That's
for
brilliant.
example. In concept, her ability is pretty simple. She can control electricity. Nothing new here in the
I
world
have a
of
degree
anime
in
powers,
media,
but it's not
film
so
and
much the
television.
ability itself, but more so
I
the
do
logic
reaction
behind its
videos.
application. At the simplest level, she can shock people, but thanks to my masters in electronic and electrical engineering, I know that electricity has more applications than just this, and so does she. Because if she can generate an electric current, that means she can generate a magnetic force.
Cool.
Something you'd know if you learned the right-hand rule, which is what I did in my masters in electronic and electrical. Okay, sorry, I'll stop.
Yeah, okay. Right.
Thanks to being able to create a magnetic force, she can stick to metallic objects, control debris, manipulate iron sands,
That's
and
awesome.
vibrate it at a fast enough frequency to make it a buzzsaw. Let's go even
Cool.
further. What else can you do with a combination of magnetic and electrical force? Well, you get something called a Lorentz force. And what can you do with a Lorentz force? Well, you can make a fucking railgun, which is a real-life weapon our modern military has been developing, and if you couldn't guess, that's why the series is called Railgun. The theory
Cool.
adds so many layers to someone's ability, and thus your combat strength doesn't necessarily raw power, but it's also your understanding of science and physics and
That's
how
awesome.
best to
That's so
apply
cool.
your ability.
This sounds
and
so good.
This is something I found incredibly original and made the science fights that much more interesting. But I think the one character that really encapsulates just how innovative these abilities can be while still grounding it in real-world physics, it's Accelerator,
You were saying,
who has one of the most unique abilities I've seen in all of anime.
Oh.
And no, it's not his ability to laugh like a beatboxing hyena. Accelerator's ability is vector transformation. Now, for those of you who didn't pay attention in maths and physics in school, a vector is any quantity that has a magnitude and direction, and what this is... I'm literally explaining fucking vectors in a video about anime. Pretty much every force you can think of can be broken down into vector components.
That's hilarious.
An accelerator can control the magnitude and direction, and what that means is any attack, no matter how big or powerful thrown at him, he's able to control not only the direction, but also the size of that attack, redirecting it back at his opponent or anywhere that he pleases. But the application of this ability goes so far
Whoa.
beyond that because so many things have a vector component. He can start earthquakes by tapping his foot on the ground. He can block incoming sound. He can control the wind. He can manipulate blood flow. He can accelerate any object just by poking at it. If something has a direction, he can control it. And what you can do with this is only restricted by your knowledge of vectors. Now, I'm sure you're thinking such an ability sounds ridiculously overpowered, because it is. So the limitations the author has given around this ability, I feel, are just as smart. Because there isn't a limit to the size of the force he can manipulate or something, but his limitations come in, get this, mathematical calculations.
What?
That's right, his kryptonite is fucking algebra! Vectors can be complex mathematical concepts to calculate, and if you're going
That's
to apply
amazing.
these manipulations in a combat situation, you need to be able to calculate how to do it in real time. This is exactly Accelerator's limitations. He has
Why?
an onboard computer to assist him with the calculations, so if there's too much data to process or the computer's battery runs out, that is his limit on what he can manipulate, and in my honest opinion, that's fucking genius.
That's cool.
Because it logically makes sense if such a ridiculous ability actually existed in this world. Which means if Accelerator's ever in a bind, there's only one thing he can do.
In the face of overwhelming odds, I'm left with only one option. I'm gonna have to science the shit out of this.
Yeah.
Of course, understanding the
Boss.
theory behind these powers doesn't actually matter in the wider context, but for pretty much anyone who comes from a scientific background, it feels incredibly rewarding, and it adds that extra layer to every fight scene, which is something I found totally unique. Alright, how many people have I lost with that last section? Is anyone still here?
I'm still here.
Engineers? Mathematicians? Physicists? Anyone else? Anyone? If you've
That's
made it this
brilliant.
far and all this sounds exactly like your cup of tea,
Sounds
well,
amazing.
this is the time when I start putting terms and conditions to everything I've said.
Right.
A lot of them.
Okay. The
There
downsides.
is one
Okay.
thing I've glossed over. To
This is what I
focus on the
appreciate about
positives
Gigguk.
and appeal of
He's
this
very honest.
franchise, and that is just how goddamn hard it tries to put new people off from getting into it. Remember
Huh.
when I said I was put off by how generic and boring the beginning arc seemed to be? Well, that still holds true and can still definitely be applied to a lot of the early arcs in Index. The franchise came at a time when trashy harem bait high school fantasy light novel adaptations hadn't already oversaturated the industry, and going back through it now, it has really not aged well. Early Index embodies almost all of the overused tropes, character archetypes, and cliches we have gotten bored of since its initial release. And it ends up coming across as a run-of-the-mill shonen action show. Considering how much of it revolves around Toma, he's just not a very interesting character, and only gets development further down in the light novel. Not only that, but his ability to cancel out other abilities is just so fucking boring compared to everything else I've talked about in the franchise.
Like everyone else's stuff that's
It's
going
not
on, yeah.
bad per se, it's just extremely generic, and this is what makes it a really hard sell. I would like to say that you could easily power through it and quickly get to the good stuff, and while there are definitely some highs I'm going to touch upon, there is a lot of bullshit to wade through. Entire seasons worth of episodes, mind you, which in today's standard of short, hard-hitting 12-episode anime series is probably going to put off about 90% of you. But this is exactly why there's no such thing as a casual fan of the franchise. Only those who've been willing to trudge through all the mediocrity are rewarded with everything the world can offer.
Right.
And if you're willing to do that, that probably means these elements are
Sit through the crap.
something that appeal very
Be
strongly
rewarded
to
with the
people,
best.
as was the case for me. The good thing to know is that while Index Season 1 was mostly world building and Season 2 was a lot of build up to a climax that was only just teased at by the end, those who have stuck with it are finally getting to see a lot of the payoff that is being adapted in Season 3 that's airing right now. And if you continue reading the light novel, it only gets better, and there's so much of it to lose yourself in. Plus, with a new season of Railgun and Accelerator just being announced, there is no better time to get into this franchise. So, after all this, there is one question left. How do you get into Index?
Oh no. Don't do the fate stay. The fate.
Do you want the long
thing.
version or the short?
There we go.
Index Season 1, then Railgun S, then Index Season 2. That's the short version.
Right.
However, that's a lot of episodes and a big commitment if you're still on the fence, and quite frankly, if I had attempted that, I would have never gotten past the first season of Index. So I wanted to share this streamlined method I used that made me decide whether I wanted to fully dive into the franchise. Now, I consumed it across different mediums, so if you don't want to do that, I will put the corresponding anime episodes, manga, or light novel volumes on screen if you just want to stick to one. This is Gigguk's Guide to Speedrunning Index.
Right.
I start off by reading the first Index arc via Volume 1 of the Index light novel, then I read the first arc in Railgun via Volumes 1 to 3 of the Railgun manga, then I watched the anime Railgun S, which is basically what sold me on the franchise. I managed to achieve this in a day, so it didn't take too much time, and the reason I chose to do this was I could quickly get an introduction to the magic world and also the science world while being able to quickly go to one of the early highlights that not only ties in a lot of the main protagonists, but is also a great fucking standalone story in its own right in its best adaptation in Railgun S. Like I said, you can get into the franchise however you want. This is just my method because I'm an impatient prick. Also, this might be a good time to mention that all the light novels and manga are available via Bookwalker if you want to try this method out. Hashtag coupon code Gigguk for $5 off.
Okay.
This is no doubt a very daunting and quite frankly hard franchise to get into, and will definitely not be for everyone. But getting into this franchise, its world and characters has given me a completely unique experience in the 15 or so years I've been an anime fan. And that is not an easy feat to do anymore. If this seems like something way too heavy to get into, that's completely understandable. If you just want something more quick and casual, there are many, many other shows you can get into.
That time
but if the specific
as a
aspects I
slime
just
is
talked about sound
amazing.
exactly like something
I'm
you
just
appreciate
saying.
and you just want to lose yourself in a franchise,
Love it,
fucking
Eminem.
do it, man. Become one of us. Because I can see why this franchise joins the ranks of things like JoJo's, Monogatari, and Fate for having this really dedicated fan base that never shuts up about it. Because there really is nothing else like it.
Right. It does sound awesome, like.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed me essentially just gushing over Index for almost 20 minutes.
Perfectly
I do
fine
want to
with
give
it.
a quick shout out to Bookwalker right now, who has the Index light novels, Railgun, and Accelerator manga if you want to try it
Wow.
out. They're actually doing a giveaway right now where you can win an Index figure, a Misaka figure,
Cool.
or a signed board by just downloading a free sample of the Index light novel before November 30th. Plus, at the moment, it's 20% off all the Railgun and Accelerator manga, and you can use
Wow.
coupon code Gigguk for another $5 off. That's all a pretty good deal in my opinion, so get on that before November 30th. I'll include a link below with the details, so remember to use coupon code Gigguk for $5 off any purchase you make.
Sweet.
Because if you want to get into the franchise, there's not a better time than now. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I've been Gigguk, and I'll see you all next time.
Sweet. Good video. I really want to watch that now. Looks awesome. There's so much going on. And I like how it's like a collected world and it all blends. That's cool. Like it's... Like he says, it doesn't happen very often. You got the Marvel movies that do very well. You got the DC movies that don't do a very good job of it. But, yeah, that was boss. Gigguk's really cool, man. I love his videos. And that was awesome. So, yeah. Thank you guys very much for watching. What did you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys. That's all of you guys next time.